Turning now to another developing story where House Republicans have finally had the chance to look at a 43-page report from 5 congressional committees about the events that led to the tragic attack on Americans in Benghazi. In a nutshell, the findings confirm what many congressional leaders say they suspected all along. The decisions to scale back security at the Benghazi, Libya outpost went all the way up to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Joining us now, Representative Trey Gowdy of South Carolina, who's also a member of the House Oversight and Government Committee. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
This 43-page report confirms very disturbing findings where it says State Department officials knew that the threat environment in Benghazi was high and that the Benghazi compound was vulnerable and unable to withstand an attack, and yet officials continued to withdraw security personnel. Are you any closer to finding out why they did that?
Are we closer to finding out why they did that? Well, by the process of elimination, we can tell you why they did not do that. It had nothing to do with money, contrary to what some State Department officials have said in the past. So it's not Congress's failure to fund it. The decision, I can tell you this, the decision to not augment security went to the highest levels of the State Department. Now, whether or not Secretary Clinton had actual or constructive knowledge of it, I can't prove yet. I can prove this to you, though. She should have. She's the head of the State Department, and there were repeated requests from the ambassador himself for additional security. There were 50-some-odd episodes of violence against Western targets. We were the last Western target left in Benghazi. The Red Cross had left. The British had left. So they were, I think I can prove to you they were under actual notice that an attack was imminent. I can certainly prove to you that a reasonably prudent person would have been under constructive notice that something bad was about to happen.
Which then begs the question, have you been able to find out the answers as to why our ambassador was there in the first place, knowing that the region was clearly unsafe?
Well, I think it had to do with perpetuating this myth that everything was okay in Libya and that our foreign policy was going along swimmingly. When you concede that a region is being dominated by terrorism, then that's necessarily a failure of your foreign policy. I can tell you this, there are more hearings on Benghazi that are coming. I would encourage you and your viewers to follow them closely, and they are coming quickly. Not to repeat what you and others have said, but when you have 4 dead Americans that were sent to do our jobs, we sent them there. We asked them to serve. So the least we can do is find out the circumstances of their death, and secondarily, the least we can do is make sure that we bring honor to their deaths by living up to the principles that they espoused and they believed in. So you've touched on the failure of security. We also need to find out what happened during the siege itself and why aid was not sent. And thirdly, what we're going to find out, we all know now that what Susan Rice said was demonstrably false. There's not a person left in the Western Hemisphere that believes what she said was accurate. The question is whether she was just grossly negligent or whether it was an intentional misleading. And secondarily, there remains the prospect that this administration's decision to blame it on a video may have actually impacted negatively our ability to get answers in the aftermath. So there are more Benghazi hearings coming. I think they're going to be explosive, and I would...
When you say explosive, are you saying that you're going to expect some of the witnesses who were at the scene and who have not been made public to this point, they may be coming forward to testify?
Well, Uma, I am bound by certain measures of confidentiality, but I would tell you that you are getting very warm. Shall we just say that?
So getting warm, and you're saying this information is going to be explosive and that these hearings are coming sooner rather than later?
Yes, ma'am, to both. They are coming sooner rather than later. Tyrone Wood's father was in Washington last week. He's not a Republican or a Democrat, couldn't care less about politics. He wants to make sure that his son's death and service and sacrifice have some meaning. And that means those of us who are put in positions of authority and oversight need to get the answers. I understand the need to or I suppose I understand the motivation that the Department of State would have to protect itself. But Uma, there's a reason we don't let kids grade their own papers in school, and there's a reason we don't let defendants sentence themselves in court, and the State Department should not be the ones investigating whether or not the State Department did a good job. It should be Congress, and it's going to be Congress very shortly.
I know I'm out of time, but I just got to ask you, when you say explosive, can you elaborate in any way in terms of information that we're going to be hearing about?
Well, Uma, if this were a trial, you can't use hearsay, so you can't say what other people would have said or what they heard. Direct evidence, direct testimony by eyewitnesses is always the most compelling form of testimony and evidence. And I would hope if anyone has direct testimony, direct evidence, that they would contact the Oversight Committee. We'll make counsel available to them so there is no punishment for their being forthcoming, but trust me, and I'm a lawyer, so I'm reluctant to say that, but trust me when I tell you, you will want to follow the hearings that are coming up.
All right. Congressman, breaking some news there for us. Thank you very much. We're going to follow this very closely with you. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.